So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Just recently, I was reintroduced to an old love, quiche. Yeah, it's been a really long time since I've been able to enjoy quiche. In fact, it's been so long. I've been living without animal products since what I jokingly refer to as the Dark Ages. And over the years, I've tried many times, several failed attempts at trying to create quiche using non-animal products. And while the taste would be good, oftentimes it would be that the texture wasn't right or it wouldn't set. So I'd end up with something that was, you know, the flavor of quiche, but nothing like what I expected it to be. So a few months ago, I ran across a brand new product on the shelves at my local grocery store, and I thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try. And came home and put together a quiche, put it in the oven, took it out, let it sit for a few minutes, and guess what? Nailed it. Perfect quiche, and that's what I'm going to teach you to make today. All right, so we're going to make a traditional spinach and mushroom quiche. We're going to use basically all the typical ingredients you would make to put together a quiche with the addition of a couple of fabulous vegan ingredients. Okay, so for starters, this recipe calls for about 1.5 cups of cooked spinach. If you want to make it quicker and easier, you can certainly use frozen spinach. But I just recently watched an old episode of the French Gourmet with Julia Childs, and she showed the coolest trick to prepare fresh spinach that I'd never considered before. So I'm going to show you what I learned from Julia, and one of them is when you have your fresh spinach, you want nice big leaves like this, because if they're little tiny leaves, you're going to be spending forever and a day preparing it. But with a big leaf like this, what she showed was that you want to remove the stem. And what I never realized before is that the stem in spinach can oftentimes be a little bit bitter and tough. I love spinach and I'll eat it just like this. But for the quiche, it's particularly nice if you remove the stem. And it's very simple removing the stem. You just hold the leaf upside down, hold it between your two fingers this way, and then you just pull up on the stem, and voila, you've got a stemless leaf. And yeah, you know, it takes a little while. So if this is something that you're going to be preparing for guests, you probably want to do this well ahead of time because it takes a little while. But I think it's worth the effort removing these stems. So we're going to go through and pull the stems off of some of these leaves so you can see how this looks. All right. So a good portion of this recipe takes place at the stove. So we're going to move over to the stove and I'm going to show you the next step in preparing the cooked spinach. So this is also more of the technique that Julia Childs used, and this is the first time I'm trying it, so you're experiencing this with me at the same time. So what she said was to get a good-sized pot of water. I've probably got at least about 2 quarts of water here. I'm bringing it to a boil. So to that we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And once the water is really boiling, I'm going to add the spinach. And we're going to let the spinach sit in the boiling water for about 2 minutes. And I think we're about ready to do that now. So these are the spinach leaves that we removed all the stems from. And as you can see, it seems like a lot of spinach, but if you've cooked spinach before, you know it reduces down to a tiny little amount by the time it's cooked. So one of the things I thought was interesting when I watched Julia Childs do this is she talked about how by doing this quick boil of the spinach, it really brightens the color. And you know what? I'm already seeing it. It looks like these leaves, the color, the shade of green is really intensifying. And if you didn't notice, I kind of like the color green. Maybe it's the vegan in me. I like that. So it's been in there already for about, I'd say probably a good 30-40 seconds. So I'm going to set my timer for about another 1.5 minutes. Yeah, 1:20 minutes. And once this is done, we'll pull it out and then we're going to strain it. Okay, so our spinach has been boiling for about 2 minutes, and now we're going to transfer it over into a strainer. Now the next step is to rinse it in cold water. As you can see, this is what all that spinach reduced down to. And now what I've got to do is I've got to get all the water out of it. You really, really, really want to squeeze as much of that water out as you possibly can. Spinach retains a lot of water. And what happens if you don't get all that water out is it adds way too much additional liquid to your recipe. And it'll make your quiche watery, and you don't want that. We're going to continue working on the filling for our quiche. So the first thing we want to do is we want to use a nice big pan. And I am a big fan of cast iron pans. Cast iron is a great medium to use for cooking. It heats evenly. Once it gets hot, the whole pan gets hot, so you don't get hot spots in any one particular area. And we're going to melt the butter, and to that we're going to add 1 diced onion. I like to use sweet onion. I just like sweet onion. Use any kind of yellow or brown onion, works perfectly fine. This is a medium-sized onion that I'm using. So I'm going to add that to my butter. Let's start getting that going here. And then next we're going to add 3 cloves of minced garlic. And then to that we're going to add a cup to a cup and a half, depends on how much you like, of sliced mushrooms. And these are white mushrooms that I'm using. You can use the cremini mushrooms, little button mushrooms. And we're just going to let all of this saute. We want to get these mushrooms fairly tender, so we'll just give that a few minutes to cook. Okay, so we're all set for the next step in our amazing quiche that we're preparing. And first thing we're going to use is just a cup of non-dairy milk. You use whatever non-dairy milk that you really like. I'm just using rice milk. And next, I'm going to add the secret ingredient. This is the one that has allowed me to finally successfully create a quiche that is a true quiche. And it is an egg replacer, and I'll show you what it is. Now, I just want to first say, this is not a specific endorsement for this company. I'm not paid to promote their product in any way. I just need to share the good news. It's this. It's by the company Just, and it's Just Egg. Comes in a bottle like this. You don't have to mix it with anything. Just shake it up well and use it. So what we're using to create the quiche is the equivalent of 4 eggs. And that equals about 3/4 of a cup of this Just Egg here. So I've got that in a measuring cup pre-measured. I'm going to add that to my rice milk. To that, I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a few grinds of pepper, probably about 1/4 teaspoon. All right, so we're just going to whisk all this together, just like that. And now we're going to go back over to the stove, and we're going to put in the final ingredients to get our quiche into the oven. So now to our onions and mushrooms that we've been sauteing, we're adding the cooked spinach. While the spinach is sauteing along with the mushrooms and the onions, I'm going to be adding 1.5 cups of cheese. And there are a lot of really wonderful vegan cheeses available today, and I like to use a variety of them. Instead of just one, I like to mix a few different flavors into the quiche. And I'm really excited because today I'm adding a couple of cheeses that my husband picked up while he was in Los Angeles yesterday. There's a fantastic artisan cheese vendor there called Fromage, and they're based in West Hollywood. And their cheeses are absolutely exquisite. They're 100% vegan and 100% fabulous. So if you're ever in the LA area, do stop by Fromage. You're going to be glad you did. So here I'm adding that to the spinach. So while the cheese is kind of melting into all of this, I'm just going to stir it around a little bit. Something else I find pretty exciting about Fromage cheese is apparently a couple of their favorite customers are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and Fromage ships to them all the way in England, and I believe you can order Fromage and they'll ship to you as well. So now to all of this, I'm going to add our egg mixture. You can't believe how good this smells. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. I'm already getting hungry. So I just want the cheese to blend in fairly well here, and once it looks like it's fairly well distributed, I'm going to pour it into the pie shell. I've made a pre-prepared pie shell, and I'll show that to you, and then we'll pop it in the oven. Okay, so here's our quiche all ready to go to pop in the oven. I'm going to put it in a 375-degree oven for about 15 minutes. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to sprinkle the top with more cheese and then put it back in for about another 35 to 40 minutes. And then it'll be done. So here's our quiche out of the oven. I've let it sit for about 20 minutes so it can really set. The crust is just a little bit darker around the edge here than I'd like it to be, so I probably would be better off if I pulled it about 5 minutes earlier. My intent was to really let it set, and as you can see, it's very nice and firm. It's nice and solid. If you would like the recipe for the pie crust, check out my video on basic vegan pie crusts. So as you can see, I decorated the top of the quiche with a few slices of tomatoes. I can't help myself. I just have to add a little color and a little pizzazz. Okay, I can't wait any longer. I've got to try this. Let's check it out. Well, I can tell you right now, this pie crust is very delicate, which is not a bad thing. Wow. That's good. That's quiche. Hey, thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please subscribe, and if you've already subscribed, share with your friends. Oh my God, look at this quiche.
Oh, it's gorgeous.